Fans, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Wardy, and we're breaking down the latest in Mets land as we're continuing our player preview and projections for the 2024 calendar season. And today I'm accompanied by a great friend of mine, fellow creator, and someone that's staying alongside me right now as we are at the BetUS house. Shout out to BetUS, the amazing sponsor here on the channel. Please click the link in the description. That way you too get a 125% boost for your first 3 deposits. If it wasn't for them, this spring training trip currently doesn't happen. Mike from Stark Raving Sports here, diehard Mets fan, and we're going to get into Pete Alonso and Francisco Alvarez, the Smash Bros. What is there to know about them heading into this calendar season? Not only for Alonso and his potential walk here, but Francisco Alvarez, who is looking for an extension. A lot to get into in this one, so make sure to smash that like and subscribe on, as it is the easiest and best way to support the channel. Thank you all so much in advance. And Mike, anything you want to add before we get into this one?
You said I was standing next to you, and I want to show to the public that I'm not that short. I am, in fact, sitting down.
My apologies, Mike. Now let's get into this one. And you know what? I think we need to start by talking about the guy that is the most hyped New York Metropolitan right now, and that is none other than, yes, El Troll himself and Francisco Alvarez. Mike, I'm going to start with you just briefly to share your initial opinions on Alvarez from this 2023 season.
Oh, he's fantastic. I think that having a catcher like that, so young with so much power, is kind of rare in the history of baseball. Only one guy, Johnny Bench, had that much power that young for the position. So I think that that's obviously the thing that most people are going to take away from Alvarez. You have to hope that things like the walk rate and the ability to throw runners out improve, because you really have a generational catching prospect. And I think if you're watching this video, you definitely know that, but now it's really time to get excited now that we have year 2 of a full season under his belt coming up.
Yeah, the hype is unreal. You know, we just saw him play, and he has been absolutely fantastic for the Mets all spring. And what we saw last season was just a power element unlike anything before at the backstop position since really Mike Piazza. I mean, it's truly remarkable what Alvarez has done given his young age, and now over the offseason can comfortably speak English too. And why do I think that's so important? I think that's so important not only with his communication constantly with the pitchers, but also the clubhouse, being able to comfortably have conversation with everyone, handling the media well, understanding the New York market. He is embodying everything that it means to be a New York Metropolitan the best way possible. And as you see here from this past season, again, you had himself with right around a 97 WRC plus, so just about a league average hitter, 25 home runs, 63 RBIs, a roughly 3-WAR player in his rookie year, a guy who didn't even start the year with the Mets. Now Alvarez, as we look at his FanGraph projections for the upcoming season, is going to be an above average hitter at 107. We're looking at 24 home runs, 73 RBIs. And I'm going to be honest, I am not buying those projections whatsoever. I think Alvarez is going to go right through the roof in the bombs. I think he can easily find himself in the 35 home run category for the Mets this season, maybe even potentially more. And ultimately, I think he's going to find himself in the 80 plus RBI range, if not 90 plus. I think he is going to be the second biggest power bat in this Mets line throughout the calendar year, along with Pete Alonso, the other Smash Bro that we'll get into shortly. So my question to you, Mike, is when you look at these FanGraph projections, do you agree or disagree, and why?
I think they're fair to start out with, because you don't know if they're going to balance him a little more by having another catcher like Narvaez in the mix. I do think that that's kind of the minimum starting point that I would have. I think that you do have to kind of taper your expectations on something like WRC plus for a catcher, because, you know, being a catcher is hard and there's a bit of a different scale for it. I personally am higher on him than that, but I understand why it's not as crazy considering position, age. There's so much that we do have to remember that he is a freak. So we have to be a little bit more understanding that, hey, maybe there's a little ups and downs if he's not just killing it right away. Remember, he didn't kill it last year, start of the year. I remember texting you that I thought he was awful in April and May, and then...
And what did I tell you?
I was very glad to be proven wrong. I was quite glad to be proven wrong.
It felt great to be proven right. I'm just yes, he's swinging through absolutely everything. The defense didn't look good, but all that changed right away. And honestly, the defense, it was a little rough early on, but for the most part, that's what became the true standout. And then it was the bat. He looked silly in the beginning. He couldn't catch up to MLB pitching, and then everything started to change. You know, we saw that Josh Hader AB to what we're seeing now, 2 totally different MLB players. So Francisco Alvarez, I can understand the projection. I'm still going the over on him. I really think this is going to be a massive year for the young catcher. And now let's get into the man that, again, we don't necessarily know what his future holds in Queens, but there's one thing we know. He has been the leader of this club in a lot of ways, and that is none other than the polar bear himself and Pete Alonso. Mike, I'll start with you. What are your overall thoughts on Pete from this past season and just him as a player and from the fan perspective?
So I'm actually going to backtrack 1 second. It's relevant, I promise. Like all the things that happened, we were talking about with Alvarez, that like he didn't start the year looking amazing, which apologies to you for that. I think that like all the reports that you see that he's like amazing at handling the media, that they keep being impressed with him. That's kind of where we were with Pete a few years ago, is that we were very excited about him early, and then he just took off running. Remember, no one needs to remind anybody about the rookie season. So I think that seeing what Alonso has become, now that we're in the one point where there isn't really a precedent for something like this, like well, if Alonso is providing a roadmap for Alvarez, what I'm interested is now that he's in the walk year, he's a guy who consistently does surpass expectations the longer he's there. I think the ceiling is the moon for him this year. Like you would not stun me if Pete somehow topped 2019 in home runs, because he's just been a guy who just manages to do it with expectations, the home run derby especially. He's a guy who is salivating for the big moment every time he's out there. And I think this is the year that you might see him start pressing a lot more on this, on firing all cylinders there, because this is his time. He's a Boris client. He is after that bag. So you know he's going to be hungry for as good a year as possible. And hey, Steve Cohen said the best outcome is that they have to pay him a ton of money. So I am very optimistic that this could be Pete's best year.
I'm very optimistic on that too. Same way how I feel in certain ways, at least on the power front, with the new man in the Bronx now, Juan Soto. I mean, there's similarities because you're two absolutely massive power bats expected to hit the market. We all know Alonso is likely going to at this rate, and I understand both perspectives from the Mets, even though I would love for them to extend him and keep him long term. It feels like that ship has sailed. It would have happened already. You know, to talk briefly on that, we heard Alonso say, you know, he was sitting, you know, basically waiting to hear anything. He's not going to be the first to approach, rightfully so. Brandon Nimmo, heading into his walk year, said the exact same thing. You know, these guys need to be approached. Stearns obviously needs to evaluate. So there's going to be a lot that goes on from now throughout the course of the season, which leads to ultimately not only Alonso's decision, but the Mets' pursuit of him. But when talking about Pete Alonso, the player, why is he so valuable and why is this such a big topic? Because he has been this Mets leader in so many ways since he arrived in 2019. To be the home run derby champ, to be leading the league in bombs the way he did right off the riff, you know, to break the Aaron Judge rookie record and to pretty much be a consistent power bat like that since then. Yes, you look at the 2023 numbers and he was down, not only dealing from the ailment when Charlie Moore drilled him, let's not forget that. He was really fluctuating throughout the vast majority of the year, and something that Alonso struggled a lot with in 2023 that I fully expect him to be better at in 2024 is not only chasing, which he said himself that he needs to get better at because he was up in 2022, was his best season in my opinion. 2023, he went down because he went back to some of his chasing ways. Also couldn't spread the field whatsoever. Was so pull happy, and we know he's a pull happy hitter when it comes to hitting bombs, but he, in 2022 was able to dink and dunk and really spread the field a bit more, which is what made him such a nice, well-rounded hitter. Wasn't the case in 2023. I expect more of that and then some here. And again, it's a walk year. Alonso's looking for the absolute bag, rightfully so, deservedly so. And to see the track record he had this past season of roughly 50 bombs, 118 RBIs, Fangraphs has him projected with a 247 average, a 842 OPS, so a 128 WRC plus, so 7 points higher from 2023, 41 bombs, 115 RBIs, and a 3-point WAR player. I'm taking the over on that as well. I think Pete Alonso is going to have, at minimum, the same amount of home runs that he had last season, if not touching the 50-plus plateau. And when getting into the range of WRC plus, all those kind of things, I could definitely see a world where Alonso finds himself in the 135, 140 range, and the OPS, again, getting in the 900s. So that's where you're really getting potentially the best season from Pete Alonso. It's a walk year. He has a lot, not necessarily to prove, but more so to kind of show exactly, reaffirm his worth heading into the market. He obviously wants to stay in Queens. He's made that abundantly clear, and hopefully they can ink him up to be their long-term first baseman / DH and hopefully retire as a Met. But even with all that uncertainty, I absolutely love Pete Alonso to death. I'm so pumped for him for this upcoming season. And between him and Alvarez and these Smash Bros, I think us Mets fans are going to have plenty to cheer about on that end at the very least.
Yeah, I think, look, put it this way. He had well over 40 home runs last year, and basically anyone outside of Queens didn't really notice. So I think that considering he's a guy who just lives for those moments, lives for those expectations, you could see he just wants it so bad in all those circumstances. I think that with the camera on him this year, I'm extremely excited and extremely interested. I truly do think he's a dark horse MVP candidate, especially if he plays better defense than he ever has. So I have very high expectations, and I'm extremely excited for him.
Yeah, as am I. Big year for Pete Alonso, big year for Francisco Alvarez, and one thing's certain, the Mets have any chance of making the postseason, it's going to be directly in hand with these two big bats. So that's going to do it for the latest player preview and projection. Thank you so much for watching. Shout out to my man Mike again for taking the time. First time on the channel. Again, I don't know how. I feel like he's been you chimed into at least one live stream or two, I think maybe in North Carolina a couple years ago, but this is like the first video format just talking about the Mets, so very happy to have him on. Please make sure to subscribe. This is Stark Raven Sports channel. If you haven't already, one of the best sports channels out there for MLB content and various other sport coverage too. And before we get out of here, again, shout out once more to BetUS for allowing us to be in this amazing BetUS house where we're doing live shows outside by the pool, beautiful bar setup, talking MLB futures, predictions, and hand with the BetUS odds. We're having an absolute blast, and we hope you guys have been enjoying all the coverage and all the type of content we're doing on my channel. Also at Robbie Hyde's channel, Jam at Ballcap Sports. We got Giraffe Neck Mark with us too. We're just having an absolute blast. So I hope you guys have been enjoying it all. Stay tuned for consistent coverage on all things Mets all offseason long. Click that link in the description. Help you boys out. Greatly appreciate it. And we'll talk to you again real soon. Peace out, everybody.